Hello, Pleasantly Middle School. Today we are going to be graphing in standard form. This equation is in standard form, and we know that because it is in the format y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So the only way to find the vertex, that's always our starting point, is by using the formula x is equal to negative b over 2a. So to do that, then I need, just like when we use the quadratic formula, we're going to pick out our A and we're going to pick out our B. We don't need to pick out our C because it's not in the formula. So A we know is -3 and B is 6. So when I substitute it into the original equation, then I end up with x is equal to 1. And of course, the vertex is in an ordered pair. So right now I can go ahead and write my axis of symmetry. So x is equal to 1. That's an equation. That's our axis of symmetry equation. And then our x is 1. In order to find b, then we have to go back and substitute it into the original equation. It meaning the number 1. I hope you are writing this down. So what this tells us then is when x is 1, then y is 8. And so that, my friends, will be our vertex. So in order to plot the vertex, I'm going to go ahead and go to my coordinate plane, and I'm going to go over 1, and I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm going to plot the point. The next step then is to use the step method. We talked about that just a little bit, the step method, where you go over 1 and up 3, and then from the next point it's always up 1, or I'm sorry, it's over 1, up 3, over 1, up 5, from there. So the first step would be go over 1, up 1, and then from that step over 1, up 3, over 1, up 5. But the problem with this problem is that our coefficient is a -3. In other words, it's not a 1. So if it's not a 1, then I have to figure out what steps to take within the step method. So it's always 1, 3, 5. So to figure out where we're going to move with our steps, we multiply each of those numbers by -3. So we end up with -3, -9, and most likely off of our table will be -15. So from that point, then I go over 1, and then I go down 1, 2, 3, and plot the point. And then now I go over 1 and down 9. And then just to kind of give us a reference, at that point, you should be at what, 3, -4. So just kind of make sure that you're in the right place. And then this point here should be what, 2, 5. So that just gives us an idea that we're doing this correctly. We know that this is the vertex right here at this point. And so we can draw in our axis of symmetry. I'm just going to draw in this dotted line here for us. And then I just make a smooth line from the vertex. Let's see, it's going to move my line. Stop that. It wants to move the line. Let me move it and see if I can. Oh, that's not going to work. I got to take that away. So I'm going to just draw in my point. I think I know why. Hold on just a second. Let me fix this. I think I didn't hang up my line, so it's confused. Now let me hang it up. Then I should be able to draw my line. Yes, there we go. So we're going to draw it through the points and then make it an arrow on either side. Now, as far as determining the other side, then from the axis of symmetry, not from the y-intercept, but from the axis of symmetry, because I went over 1 point at 2, 5, then I'm going to go back 1 point here, and then I went over 2 from there, so we're going to be 2 here. And then you can plot your line, or actually connect your points. So what do you have? 3, and then here we should have 1, -1, -4. So once again, just to make sure that you're kind of on the right track. So that's it. That's all you would have to do in terms of your graphing. However, I want to show you how to do this. Oh, one more thing before I get ahead of myself is that we can always check by the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, we know that's going to be a shift on our y-axis. So this point right here represents the y-intercept. So once again, we know that we have graphed it correctly. In order to use a graphing calculator, this really is going to make sure that you have done it correctly. We can check with the table of values. So let me show you something, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the calculation. Another thing, I think I already said the graph is going down. So if it's going down because of our -3, then that means we have a maximum. Something for you to think about there. So to graph, we just go to our y is equal to, and I already have it plugged in, so -3x squared plus 6x plus 5, and then I'm going to go ahead and push the graph so we can see that. And then this is the really, really valuable tool. It's the table. So I want you to click second and then table. It's right sitting there right on the graph. And then we already know that the vertex is, what, 1/8? And let's say that I didn't know that because I didn't calculate the vertex. I can tell very easily by scrolling up and down. So what I'm looking for is the first place that a number repeats. So in this example, 0, 5, see how the 5 repeats, and then 2, 5, that repeats. And so what that tells us is that this 1/8 is our vertex. Now let's talk about how to do that mathematically, because you can use the step method or you can use a table of values, whichever one you're more comfortable with. I really want you to see the connection between the table of values and the graph itself. So let's go back to our notes. So the original equation, so when you do the table of values, we're going to just kind of mirror what we just talked about. So we already know that our vertex was 1/8. So I'm just going to put a little star by that so I can remember that that was my vertex. And then I'm just going to choose numbers on either side of 1. So 0 is 1 less, 2 is 1 more, and then it's just a basic substitution. So what that tells us then, and we already know that this is correct, is that when x is 0, then y is 5. And if we've done this correctly, then when I plug in 2, it should be exactly the same as well. So y is equal to -3. This time we're substituting in 2. Again, why did I choose 2? Because it's 1 more than 1. And I could choose any number, but I really want to get a good idea of if I've calculated correctly, because those two numbers should match. So choose 1 above and 1 below. So basically here our 12s will cancel. So that's going to go away. Y is equal to 5. And so as you can see, then our table of values completely matches our graph, which also matches our calculations. And then again, don't forget the idea of the y-intercept to make sure that that works. And we can see that that was 0, 5. So we did a good job with that. Moving on to our second example. So now we have x squared minus 6x plus 9. The first step is to use the formula. X is equal to -b over 2a. That's going to be to help us to find our vertex. And so we pick out a, which is 1, b, which is -6. Now remember, the formula is negative. So it's negative, negative. and then that's going to be over 2 times 1. So I should expect, because this is the leading coefficient is positive, I should expect the parabola to be going upwards and to have a minimum. That's what we should expect. So x is equal to 6 over 2, or 3. What parentheses? Once I have my x coordinate, then I'm going to substitute it into the original equation. Also, right now, I could go ahead and say x is equal to 3. That's my axis of symmetry. So when I substitute in 3, then I have so we've got 9 minus 18, which is negative 9, plus 9 gives me 0. So that tells me then that I'm going to just go ahead and write this on a table of values so we can see it, and I'll put a little star by it. And then when eventually, I'm not there now, but I'm going to get there in just a little bit, because we're going to graph it using the step method. We're just going to come back and make sure that we know how to do the calculation. So our point is 3, 0. So over 3 and 0. So I still am sitting on the x-axis. And then from there, then we just do the 1 over 1 up. So from here, we're going to go over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, 2, 3. And then I can also go over 1, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And since I have the space, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So then I'm going to draw in my axis of symmetry, dotted line, so that it's easy to graph. So from the axis of symmetry, not from the y-intercept or the y-axis, but from there, then I'm going to do my points on either side. So it's a reflection. So that one should be 2. Looks like I just did 1. Here's 1. And then we did 2 there. And then here, what is it? 3. So 1, 2, 3. And that now we are on the y-intercept. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And that's just going to kind of verify that we did this correctly. This is K, otherwise known as Y. And so we know right away this 0, 9, that is a point on our line. So we absolutely graphed this correctly. It feels good when we have something else just to kind of back us up. So we had 1, 2, 3 from there, 1, 2, 3. That will help us to know. So once that we're done for all practical purposes, we've verified with the y-axis, we have graphed it, we wrote in our equation for the axis of symmetry, but let's use the graphing calculator and let's talk about our table of values. Actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and just substitute in, and then we'll go back to that. That'll make it more time efficient. So here's our original formula. I'm going to substitute in Okay, so what that tells us then is when x is 2, then y is 1. And so I should, again, entirely expect this to be 1. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, so I will say it again. It's opening upwards because this is a positive, and we did a good job with that. So now let's go back. X squared minus, oops, I'm going to go ahead. Let me write up here. I'm running out of space. So this time we're using 4 for x. So bam, we got it. Y is equal to 1. So let's look at that on the graphing calculator. Use that table of values that is so beneficial to us. So what do we have? X squared minus 6x plus 9. All right, so we can see the graph. Give it your calculator a little think time, and then we're going to go ahead and hit the table. Once we are at the table, we already know that the vertex is 3, 0, but look at this. It just validates what we were talking about before. So we've got when we've got the vertex is 3, 0. Here's our vertex. And then on either side of that, look at the repeat, just like we expected. 2, when x is 2, y is 1. And when x is 4, y is 1. Be sure to use the formula negative b over 2a to find your vertex. Be sure to draw in your axis of symmetry and to write the equation x is equal to. I hope you enjoyed your lesson on graphing in standard form.